Please like and subscribe to channel if you enjoyed the video. Former friend who called me a bad influence for being child-free just demanded today that I take in his family plus 3 kids into my home. First, this isn't a post where I'm asking if I did the right thing or not. I know I did the right thing. This is a pure rant about this emotional day. Because if anyone is going to understand, it's you all in the CF community. The gist, a former friend, Dave, not real name, who I haven't had any contact with for almost 3 years, just got in touch with me again. He claims he has a home emergency and needs to find a place for him/wife/3 kids to stay while the home situation gets fixed. This is the same guy who, when I was going through something traumatic, told me he can't be my friend because I'd be a bad influence to his kids being child-free. A bit of background. The reason for the friendship ending: I was in a high-stress situation and very sad. My father dying was just one of the terrible things that happened in a span of 3 months. I was looking for consolation, and instead, Dave told me that me being a CF woman was a bad influence on their family. Had a wife plus 2 kids then. In short, they didn't want to spend time around me as I wasn't worth it when they have more valuable friends. This was someone I had known since graduate school and had spent a lot of time doing fun stuff with, like rock climbing. Dave and I were among a group of mutual buddies that regularly rented out lake houses or winter lodges for summer and winter sports activities. We're talking 10 plus years. Then to just ditch me because he thought I wasn't useful hurt a lot, especially when I was dealing with some really sad stuff. Even more so because I was there for him when he found out his mom had cancer and then was there for him at his mom's funeral. Like I said, I haven't spoken or texted him in almost 3 years. I chalked it up to people getting really weird when they have kids. That they fall into a traditional conservative mindset that anyone who isn't wanting or working toward a Leave It to Beaver/2.5 kid situation is somehow suspect. Then today I see a text pop up on my phone from Dave. I never erased or blocked his number from my phone, so his name was still saved. And there it was. He asked me to let him and his 3 kids stay with me at my house because their water heater broke and it's kind of an emergency situation. He knows I now live in the same city as him and it would be a really big favor and he'd owe me. Okay. So lots of emotions with that. Apparently, since he told me I'm a bad influence, him and his wife had a 3rd kid. COVID baby, I guess. My biggest question was why ask me? Of all people, I asked Dave why he's asking me to do this for him. His response was basically that he's all out of options and that no one has the room for him and the 3 kids, especially with his 5-month-old. Asked him why can't he arrange a hotel room for them. He said that would be really expensive and they're in a lot of medical debt already from their newest kid having to be in the NICU when he was born. Said that sounds tough, but again, why me? He said he knows I helped out someone last year with emergency housing and saw I had enough extra room for guests. Since I was so generous back then, I could be generous with him now. I knew exactly what he was talking about, but I really wanted to know how. That situation was delicate, and I thought a private family matter. He said it was posted on Facebook by the couple I helped. Quick segue. About this time last year, one of my good college friends, Kate, with lupus got COVID-19. She was being so careful too. It sucked because this was before the vaccines rolled out first for vulnerable people. She is my age, mid-30s, and very healthy aside from lupus. She's a marathon runner actually. Kate's lupus ended up making COVID even worse and she ended up in the ICU. On top of that, she was pregnant, and her husband had to make the decision to save her life over the fetus. Basically, it was either giving life-saving medicine and care to Kate at the expense of her fetus or she dies. Thankfully, he's a good guy and let the doctors end the pregnancy to save her life. Kate's mother was at equals and said that her daughter should have died with the baby. She said Kate's life is not worth much anymore and even tried to bring in a priest to try to give her last rites. Kate was in a coma at the time. This caused a huge dramatic fallout, as you would imagine. Kate's brother and his wife needed a place to stay away from their equal's mother immediately. I had an extra room and I'm in easy distance from the hospital. They stayed with me for 2 days until they locked down a hotel room in one of those long-term residence hotels. No one was sure Kate was going to make it out alive, so they understandably wanted to be nearby. They lived out of state and were staying with the equal's mother while their sister was in the hospital. Thankfully, Kate made it out alive and has since disowned her mother. She actually remembers, while in the coma, people talking about the priest trying to break in. I let the brother and his wife into my home because these people were good people, have always been supportive, and still are some of the most gracious people I know. Apparently unbeknownst to me, because I'm not on Facebook, is that either Kate's brother or his wife posted something about how much of a decent person I was to help them out in a dire moment of need and a light during a very dark period for them. They told me as much to my face. I just didn't know that they shared the situation on social media. So back to today, Dave saw that stuff last year, kept it in his head, and thought I would let his family and kids into my home with open arms. Frankly, I told him to shove it. He was trying to guilt me into letting him and his family into my house for an unspecified amount of time. That he knows I'm child-free. Hell, he even said me being child-free is a bad influence on his family. Why ET all of a sudden when it's convenient for him? I'm magically not a bad influence, and he should be able to waltz back into my life without even a single apology for the equals things he said 3 years ago. I told him being child-free means I don't want kids in my house for an extended period of time. If I did, I wouldn't be child-free. That I was not going to disrupt my life and my 2 cats to be a bed and breakfast for his 3 kids. He said I was selfish and to think of his kids, that there's no hot water in his house. Told him tough that he can whip out a credit card or get one of his relatives to cover a hotel stay. He gave me more excuses, brought up their medical debt again, and said it'll only be for a few days. He said that multiple days for a broken hot water heater sounds extremely suspect. Stuff like that can be fixed relatively quickly. I know residency laws in our state, and if someone stays 7 days in someone's home, then they can claim tenants' rights. I was not about to risk this turning into a thing where I can't get rid of them. He told me off and then said he will blast me all over social media and to all my friends that I won't help a family of 3 in an emergency. That I want little kids to suffer. Told him to pound sand and eat he hasn't been a friend for years. He doesn't even know my address. All he knows is that I live seemingly close in the same city and that I live alone. He can blast me on social media all he wants. I'm not on Facebook, so I don't give a single what the gaggle of Karens think of me. Told him social media isn't real life. If he has actually shared this with my actual friends, that they'd laugh right in his face. Told him I have all his texts for proof of the way he spoke to me, and how he's a bit told him he used to be a decent guy, that we had a lot of nice times together, that I'm still sorry about his mom. And I am sorry that he went down this path in life since it sounds like he must be really miserable. But he's a bad influence in my life, so I just can't have him around. I'm sure he'll understand since he said the same about me. That was the gist of the last thing I said. He went off until I blocked him. I'm really sad about it. He really used to be a decent person back 10 years ago, and his mom was a lovely woman. I'm now bracing myself against flying monkeys who may come out of the woodwork and try to guilt me into taking in his family. Can't wait to tell them to take in his family themselves. I already talked about the situation with my 2 best friends, and they both were shocked that Dave was so brazen and had no shame. They thought it was suspect that he was so pushy about getting into my home, and for days. One friend said that her water heater broke recently and had a plumber come out the same day. It only took a day for it to be fixed. Being against the hotel idea was a red flag to them. They are curious what the whole story is. I agreed that it feels like it's missing something. Do feel a righteousness about all this. I know I did the right thing. I hate that a previous kindness was used as a weapon against me. Years ago, I thought maybe he had a point that I was somehow not good enough B/C. I was pretty depressed. Like, people don't want sad people around. Now with clarity, I see that he had a profoundly bad character. But it did reopen old memories, sad memories. Anyway, thanks for reading if you made it all the way through this. Had to get this off my chest and